For 5 seasons, there's been one rule on The Boys that nobody ever said out loud, but everybody felt. Homelander could laser a stadium full of people. Soups could die by the dozen. Side characters, villains, allies, anybody was fair game. A-Train swerved to avoid an innocent bystander, the most heroic thing he ever did. Lost control of his speed, crashed into a forest, and had his neck snapped by Homelander while laughing in his face. Black Noir too got strangled and stabbed by the deep over 1 billion dead fish. This show has never once been shy about killing people, but the boys themselves, Butcher, Huey, Frenchie, Kimiko, Starlight, they always made it out every single season. Through every impossible situation, every moment where they should have died, they didn't. That was the unspoken contract between the show and its audience. These 6 people are safe. Everyone else is on borrowed time. Episode 7 just ended that contract. Frenchie is dead, dying in Kimiko's arms while she pleaded with him not to leave. And if you know the comics, those are the exact same last words he says to Kimiko right before they both die in Garth Ennis's original story. The show didn't choose that line by accident. Nothing on this show is chosen by accident. Eric Kripke went on record immediately after the episode dropped. He said the boys as a unit simply cannot reach the finish line without a major sacrifice, that there's no real victory without terrible loss, that he wanted the win to feel hard won, and hard won means you pay a real price. Frenchie was the price. But he wasn't the only one, because episode 7 wasn't just an emotional gut punch, it was a roadmap. Every character beat, every scene, every unresolved thread, it's all pointing somewhere specific. The show laid out exactly who's surviving and who isn't. You just have to know what you're looking at, so that's what we're doing today. Every surviving major character, reading the evidence, making our calls. No vague could go either way hedging, no playing it safe. Some of these are going to hurt. Let's get into it. Let's start with the ones most likely to survive. Starlight. Annie is the one character this show has never seriously put in mortal danger across 5 seasons, and episode 7 makes it clear that's not changing in the finale. Her arc this episode is a crisis of purpose, and the show resolves it before the credits roll. She's burned out sharing a smoke with asking whether any of this is even worth it anymore. She dismissed Marie and Jordan from Gen V with this defeated coldness that is not Annie. That's a woman running on empty. And then gives her the pigeon story, and she refills. That is not a death arc. That is a renewal arc. You don't spend screen time reigniting a character's will to fight if you're about to kill them. The show is giving Annie her purpose back specifically because she needs to carry it into the finale. There's also a structural reason she can't die. If Butcher goes full villain and tries to use the virus on all soups, which we'll get to, someone needs to be standing at the end who represents why the fight was worth having. Kimiko is grief and rage. Is moral conviction. Annie is hope. You can't end this show without hope. She's it. She's surviving blood and bone. Mother's milk. Finally explains the nickname this episode. The pigeon, the childhood humiliation, the small act of kindness that nobody saw and nobody applauded that became the foundation for everything he is. That's a scene of completion. Giving him this moment so late in the run is the show making sure his arc feels whole before the ending. It's the kind of scene you write when you want the audience to feel satisfied about who a character became, not when you're about to kill them. Also has a narrative function that keeps him alive. He has to witness Butcher's final turn. He has to be in the room when Huey makes the decision that breaks everything. He's the moral conscience of this group, the one who always knew when Butcher was going too far, who never fully surrendered to the mission. You need that witness. He's not dying in blood and bone, but he's going to wish at some point that things had gone differently. Kimiko. Kimiko is carrying 2 things into the finale, a grief so raw she hasn't begun to process it, and a power nobody fully understands yet. Sage confirmed the radiation experiment worked, whether it's complete, unstable, or conditional. That's the live question. Here's what's not in question. The show spent the entire back half of episode 7 building this setup. Frenchie convinced Sage to help. Sage triple-checked the calculations. Kimiko went through excruciating rounds of uranium exposure until her healing ability started slowing down. That is the main event weapon for the finale. You don't build something with that much care if it doesn't get used in the next episode. And Frenchie's death might be the thing that fully unlocks it. This show has always tied Kimiko's emotional state to her physicality. She couldn't speak for years until something deep inside her shifted. The grief she's carrying into Blood and Bone is the most profound thing she's ever felt. The idea that it catalyzes whatever the radiation did to her is exactly the kind of thematic logic the boys runs on. She survives, but she goes through something in that finale she will never fully come back from. Sister Sage. Sage spent most of this season as the smartest person in any room she walked into. And then Frenchie sat down with her and talked about love, about how some things defy logic, about his grandmother, the only person who was ever proud of her. And something cracked open. She agreed to help. She ran the calculations. She checked the work 3 times. And then she lobotomized herself again, not out of strategy this time, out of something that looked like despair at having feelings she doesn't know how to carry. Here's the problem. She defected from Homelander. She helped the boys build a weapon to destroy him. And Homelander spent the back half of episode 7 actively hunting her. He went to the lab, looking for her specifically. He didn't find her because Frenchie bought enough time, but he knows she turned. Now she's walking around with a half-functioning brain. And the most paranoid and powerful being on the planet is looking for her. Homelander finds her in the finale. The version of Sage that could have outmaneuvered him is already gone. She doesn't survive this. The Deep story ended in episode 7. He just doesn't know it yet. Homelander cut him loose after the presidential murder, not dramatically, just dismissed him, the way you wave away something that stopped being useful. The ocean rejected him. His manager dropped him. He ran from a drowning person instead of saving them. Perfectly on-brand cowardice from a character who's been defined by it for 5 seasons. He has nothing. No alliance, no purpose, no identity. The 7 is gone. Homelander doesn't need him. The ocean doesn't want him. The show has been building deep toward one final moment of reckoning, and given how this show operates, it'll be ugly, ironic, and probably aquatic. His whole arc has been dark comedy. His exit needs to be one last devastating punchline. He doesn't make it out of Blood and Bone. Oh, Father. Oh, Father spent episode 7 rehearsing Homelander's religious unveiling. A full gospel number, complete devotion, absolute belief. And Daveed Diggs is so good in this role that you almost forget it's completely horrifying. But here's the thing about Homelander. He doesn't want true believers. He wants mirrors. People who reflect his greatness back at him without question, without their own theology, without any framework that isn't his face. Oh, Father has a genuine relationship to God, his own sense of what divine power means. The moment his vision of God and Homelander's vision of himself come into conflict, and they will because Homelander is accelerating into pure chaos, that's when Homelander turns on him. The leaks suggest Homelander kills Oh Father himself when the performance stops going his way. That tracks exactly. His death might also be the moment that fully breaks Ashley's loyalty and sends her running. I don't think he survives the finale. Soldier Boy. Soldier Boy's episode 7 scene is one of the quietest in the episode and completely loaded. He walks into Homelander's chambers, looks at everything his son has built for them, the Mount Rushmore wall, the amusement park, the Father of God title, and he's done with all of it. He doesn't want the suits, he doesn't want the food, he wants to go to Bogota, drink himself into oblivion, and never think about any of this again. He tells Homelander flat out he doesn't love him, America can burn, he gave him the V1 only because Stormfront would have wanted it. Homelander chokes him and puts him back in cryo. That cryo tank is one of the most loaded narrative guns this show has ever put on the wall. You don't end episode 7 with Soldier Boy in stasis unless he's coming out in episode 8. His radiation blast is still the most reliable power stripping mechanism we know of. The entire Kimiko experiment is based on replicating it. If her version is incomplete in the finale, Soldier Boy is the backup. But he's made it clear he doesn't care about saving anyone. So if he acts, It won't be heroism. It'll be spite, one final act of free will from a man who spent 70 years being used by everyone around him. That kind of ending doesn't come with survival. He's not making it to Bogota. Ryan. Ryan hasn't appeared since Homelander beat him bloody in episode 3. 6 episodes. That absence is not an oversight. The show is holding him in reserve. He went to Planet Homelander alone, confronted his biological father about raping Becca. Homelander held him down and destroyed him. And then Ryan disappeared from the story. He's the only naturally born soup in this show. No compound V injected by Vought, pure inherited power. None of the conditioning that broke Homelander. He has his mother's empathy and his biological father's strength. That combination is the show's most loaded weapon, and it's been sitting unused for 6 episodes. He's coming back in blood and bone. The leaks suggest he survives and ends up raised by Huey and Annie in a time skip. The closest thing this show has to a hopeful ending. Whether that's true or not, Ryan's return matters. The question Blood and Bone answers is whether he comes through it intact. Butcher is not surviving Blood and Bone. That's not a prediction. It's a conclusion. The evidence is stacked so high at this point that arguing against it means ignoring everything the show has built. Start with episode 7, Synapse. The psychic soup working for Homelander spent the episode inside Huey's head wearing Kessler's face, telling him the truth about Butcher, how he got his unit killed, the damage he's capable of, the man Huey has been following. People wrote that off as a plot device to explain Synapse's death, but the content of what Synapse showed Huey, that's real, and Huey is going to need it. Because here's what's coming. Butcher turns the virus on every soup, not just Homelander, all of them. Kimiko, Starlight, Ryan, anyone carrying V in their veins. The same people he's been fighting alongside become targets because Butcher has always believed the only real solution is total extermination. He built that virus for this purpose. He's been working toward it for years, and Frenchie's death removed the last thing tethering him. The grief and the rage are going to push him over the edge. The comics gave us this ending directly. Butcher goes scorched earth. The boys refuse to follow, and Huey, the most decent person in this entire story, the emotional heart of the show since season 1, has to be the one who stops him. Not in anger, not in revenge, in grief, in the devastating recognition that this is the only way, and Butcher looks relieved. He doesn't fight back. He's been trying to die for a long time. He's been running on borrowed time since Becca. What Huey does isn't a betrayal. It's the mercy Butcher can't give himself. That is why this show exists. Everything, every season, every sacrifice, every impossible choice has been building to Huey having to make that call. Butcher dies in blood and bone. And it's going to be one of the most devastating things this show has ever done. Moreau. Marie showed up in episode 7 for 3 minutes. She and Jordan Lee dropped intel on Oh Father. Annie told them to hide, and that was it. But the internet won't let this go, and the argument isn't crazy. Marie and Homelander are both products of Project Odessa, the same lab experiment. Stan Edgar confirmed in Gen V Season 2 they're the only 2 successes. Her bloodbending could theoretically purge the Compound V straight out of Homelander's system. No physical fight needed, just get close enough and collapse him from the inside. She already did exactly that to Godolkin, expanded his blood vessels and burst his head off his body. The problem is, Kripke said it himself before Season 5 dropped. People should be prepared for the Gen V kids to not coming in and save the season. Then episode 7 has Marie say, reports of my greatness have been greatly exaggerated, directly in response to the idea she could kill Homelander. That's the show saying no twice. The real reason she doesn't get the kill, the show built Kimiko for this. The radiation experiment, Frenchie's sacrifice, Sage's calculations. That's the V-stripping weapon the finale is built around. Marie is a red herring with genuinely good lore behind her. She shows up in blood and bone. She probably does something useful. She doesn't kill Homelander. Homelander. Homelander became a god in episode 6. He killed the president in episode 7. He's fully off the leash. And that's exactly why his death in blood and bone isn't going to be a heroic battle. It's going to be a collapse. His whole psychology is built on one terror, the fear of being ordinary, powerless, nothing. Every act of violence is a man screaming, "Love me or I'll destroy you." Strip away the cape and the laser eyes and you have a traumatized child who was never taught how to be human. The leaks say Kimiko's power strips the V1 from his system. The virus gets into him. And instead of going out in a blaze of glory, Homelander breaks. He hallucinates. He spirals. He begs. The man who declared himself God dies as exactly what he always feared. One leak claims Butcher finishes him with a crowbar, a broken man killing another broken man by hand. Homelander dies in blood and bone, and it won't feel like a victory. Episode 7 was called The Frenchman, the Female, and the Man Called Mother's Milk. 3 characters, 3 final statements before everything ends. Frenchie's was the simplest. Love is worth dying for. He knew what he was walking into. He walked in anyway. His last words were the same ones he'd been holding since the beginning, for the one person who mattered most. Kimiko's is still unwritten. She's carrying grief and a power she doesn't understand into a fight that's going to demand everything from her. And MM's was the pigeon. The small thing nobody noticed. The reminder that doing the right thing doesn't require anyone to see it. That once is enough to build a life on. Blood and Bone drops May 20th on Prime Video. 1 hour, series finale. Screening in 4DX theaters a day early. And that's not how you release a quiet epilogue. That's how you release a war. Every thread this show has spent 5 seasons pulling on is about to snap. Butcher dies. Homelander dies. The cost of winning is going to be enormous. The only real question left, the one this show has been asking since episode 1, is whether any of them come out the other side still recognizably human. We'll find out on May 20th. Subscribe if you're not already. We're breaking down the finale the moment it drops, and there is going to be a lot to break down.